Hello.
Hey, you.
I always have this problem with pushing go live and the other button in the right order. So there was a moment, but we're totally live now and I did it in the right order.
Okay. Hey, that's
Because what
good.
could go wrong? Welcome to What Could Go Wrong, by the way.
A lot. I'm just answering that question. A lot could go wrong.
Things. Because there was like a mini version of this live earlier today that was accidental, and it went live, and there was like a little countdown there, and people were like, "Hey, I'm excited to be here," and nothing was happening, and it was a bit of a shenanigan. Now people are still commenting on it, saying what could go wrong or what did go wrong.
Yes, that's
many things.
That's a great title. That's a good
right?
title for life.
All things.
Definitely.
Covers all things. Okay, well, I'm talking to you like everybody knows who you are, but I mean, I feel like you should introduce yourself because
I should.
I would just say you're that guy who talks about the education stuff and has the shiny head. Maybe a little snarky.
Easy. Because this is by choice, okay? This is choice.
Oh, is it?
I'm exerting my choices. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I believe you.
Yes. Yes, because I could wear a toupee, and that would be a choice as well. All right, so I want to, you want me to introduce myself, really?
Yeah, please go ahead. Like your name and everything.
Because normally what happens is someone introduces me and they make up things, because I usually get to write it. I write the intro and I make up stuff. And all right, so here's Matt Barnes. Actually, that's probably the best way to describe Matt Barnes, right there.
Oh, I love you, Daddy, with your mug.
I am a dad, and that's pretty much it.
That's it. That's the whole thing. Why are you even here then? If that's
because I got some things to say. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
All right. I'll give you the more accurate rundown. So I'm a dad. First and fourmost, I have been really involved with education for the last 20 years. Since before I lost my hair, I was very involved with education.
Wait, 20 years? So you're older than 20?
I am. That's
wow.
Okay. You get 1 point.
Never would have guessed.
You get 1 point. All right. So I've been on the board of 9 different educational institutions from pre-K all the way to Head Start. I'm sorry, all the way to university.
Pre-K to Head Start. That's like this much. That's like
this stuff.
Like big.
So from pre-K all the way to university. It was a selective public university. For those out there in the viewer world, the 3 people who are watching, I went to a place called Truman University, so you should check that out and send your kids. But I also, again, back to my kids, I followed a non-traditional educational path for my kids, and that was not by design. It actually started because the school we were scheduled to attend, we went through the lottery process for our magnet school, and there was a whole bunch of shenanigans going on at that school that became public the week before school started. And then we ended up, it was great. It was like, this is exactly how I wanted my son to start kindergarten. And it was actually about race too, by the way. So it's like,
good.
That's perfect. Right. So, yeah, we ended up backing out of our public school within a week, and we were kind of stuck. And I called us, we became reluctant homeschoolers. And then from that point on, because I never thought, I feel
like there's a lot of people who could identify with that right now.
Everybody, right? It's very similar, honestly. I mean, we, within the span of a week for us, we went from knowing our son was going to go to a great, what we thought was a great public school, to then learning that the principal had been making some statements that were incredibly racially loaded, and she was going to stay on in her role, in her job.
Of course. Why not?
Because, she's a good principal.
Complete sense. Totally.
Yeah, and then we had to figure it out, just like everybody did back in March, right? We had to figure it out. What we learned, though, was after about a month, 2 months maybe, we realized that some things were happening in our family that were actually really healthy. And some of those things were, we became owners of our child's learning, as opposed to blaming the teachers, blaming the school when my kid's not learning stuff. And so from that point on, we just kind of
and your kid's not learning stuff.
Yeah, that's what Americans do, right? My kids aren't doing well. It's not me. It's gotta be all the other systems out there.
Obviously, most assuredly, that is definitely the answer. Obviously, assuredly, definitely, that's it.
Yep.
It's the other things, never the parent.
So, continue with my 4-hour introduction.
I like it.
Because I was on the board of these schools, particularly the university, parents started approaching me and saying, "Hey, how do I help my son or daughter navigate and get to college?" And so I began to just speak about it at church, began to, lead classes, and then eventually it grew into kind of a fledgling business. I'm looking at the chats over here. Ownership of a child's learning is, and then followed by eight fireballs, which I guess that's a good thing. So
it's a good thing.
Yeah. So when people started asking me, like, how do I do this? How do I navigate? I started sharing with them, but then I also started sharing with them, hey, you have to become the owner of your child's education. And it doesn't happen overnight, but the faster you become that, the more you now insulate yourself from a system that actually conspires against a lot of kids, particularly poor kids, particularly kids of color. The outcomes are just terrible for those populations. And so that's what I started doing. And that's kind of how I got to this point. I've been reading and writing and speaking and arguing for years.
That's what you do. You just read, write, speak, and argue. That would have been a lot shorter to say if you would have gone with that introduction.
I'll go with
that.
What
do you read, write, speak, and argue about?
Well, let me show you what is on my desk right now. So,
are there dinosaurs? I was promised dinosaurs.
No. Oh. There's this. Dilbert.
It's a comic.
It's
obviously.
Yeah, it's a comic, but it's real life. This Dilbert is real life. And then there's this.
The Work from Anywhere Future, like it.
This magazine right here is like, everybody should read this. This magazine.
Oh, the Harvard Business. I've read that article.
Well, I'm talking about, yes, the magazine itself, but I'm talking about this edition. It talks all about what is happening in the world. And for any parent whose child's school looks even remotely like their school when they were growing up, I can almost promise you that you're in trouble.
I like that.
Think about it.
Say it one more. Say it again.
Okay. For emphasis, for parents, if your children are going to a school that looks, feels, or tastes like the school you attended, I can almost promise you that you're going to be in trouble.
I like
it.
Mm-hmm.
So this article or series of articles talks about all of the transitions that are happening because of COVID, and those transitions waterfall immediately down to particularly K-12. And if parents aren't really kind of, again, being aware of these dynamics and then making adjustments, it's not unlikely. The school will not make those adjustments. It's too slow. It's not built for being agile. It was built for being very, very, very stable. And that's what it's been for 120 years.
And define stable.
Stable. Outcomes that are consistent.
Okay.
Bad, but consistent.
Consistent for who?
Well, okay. In my neighborhood, largely African-American population, 1 in 10 black boys are reading on grade level by 3rd grade. That number has 1 in 10, right? Mm. It boggles the mind, and that number hasn't changed.
Boggles.
Yes. Is there a hashtag for that? There should be a hashtag.
Hashtag boggles. I feel like you also used, what was the other word? Curmudgeon? You used curmudgeon today.
Used curmudgeon.
I'm loving your vocabulary.
Yep. That's that vocabulary happens when you read things. I didn't realize this until after high school, because all throughout high school, I avoided learning like the plague, right? And I talked to so many families whose kids are like, gosh, I hate learning. Learning sucks. I'm not smart. I don't like to read. I don't like math. I hear this all the time. And I'm like, well, that's because of the model makes all these things so unenjoyable. So of course you don't like to read because you're told what to read all the time, right? Of course you don't like to do math because math is not about solving real problems. It's just these archaic, you're chasing a grade. So William Kelly just used that word archaic. Excellent.
But look at that. And Jennifer said curmudgeon is underused.
I agree. There are some words that really need a resurgence. Curmudgeon is one of them.
Resurgence. You are on fire today with your words. I'm just so excited about your vocabulary choices. It's very exciting.
I can use smaller words.
No, I love it. I want you to tell us what was when we were originally talking, I was like, so what are we going to title your episode? And you responded very quickly with what Dinosaur, Blockbuster, and Buggywhips. And I giggled. And I was like, okay, well, I'll give you time to work on it then. And then we'll come back to it later. And you were like, no, really? And I was like, wait, what? Can you tell me these words? And also, is Buggywhip a real word? Because I feel like you made that up. So now I feel like everyone is, since you didn't show up in a T-Rex outfit like we had wanted collectively as an audience, I feel like now you owe us telling really amazing thing.
All right. Well, this is my costume. This is the costume I normally use, and I will try to avoid. I'll try to avoid big words, Jennifer. Okay. So the title of this conversation is "What do dinosaurs, Buggywhips, and Blockbuster Video have in common with schools?"
I like the way you enunciate the H in whips. Buggy.
Can we move on?
So sorry. Please continue. Please.
I'm about to get into an argument. This is what I do now. Okay. So which one would you like to start with?
Buggywhips.
Buggywhips. Okay. Buggywhips are a real thing, or at least they used to be. And so I'm old enough to remember riding in a horse and buggy. Not really that old, but I've heard stories.
Comment. You said I had to be nice. I'm just listening now.
Thank you. So here's the deal. So back in 1900 something around there, Henry Ford invented the Model T, right? Transformed all of transportation. 2 years before the Model T was developed, there was somewhere in the United States, there was a buggy whip manufacturer. And buggy whip is the whip that you use to hit the horse to keep it moving, et cetera, right? So there was some manufacturer of buggy whips, and they're the best manufacturer in the world. People come from all around for their buggy whips because they know that this is the top of the echelon. Top of the pile.
No with the big words. I like the big words. Doing awesome. Everybody's excited about it.
Okay. All right. Anyway, so what happened to the owner of that buggy whip company? They're out of business, right? Probably within a few years. Why? Because families and really farmers at the time were wanting something different. What they wanted was flexibility. The Model T, when it first was built, was it had problems in terms of its manufacturing. It would break. They'd have to bring parts. They'd have to constantly repair it, but it was flexible. That meant it could go in the rain. It could go in the snow. It could go in mud. It could go in long distances or short distances. It can go at any time. It could sit 5 people or 1. I mean, it's just flexible, right? That's what people are after. Now, let's now compare that to our traditional public schools or private schools, frankly, because this cuts across traditional models of schooling. It's all
just the general model,
right?
Regardless of the funding.
The model is inflexible. If I, as a student or a parent, says to the school, "Hey, I'd like my child to take this math class over here instead of the math class you're offering," what does the school say? It says no.
We have 1 degree plan.
We have 1 degree plan. We can't do that. Even in a private model, I was talking to a guy today. He was a head of he worked in IT in a kind of a ritzy private school. And he's trying to argue with his leadership to make adjustments to their model to allow other kids to learn through their school virtually. And he's getting pushback because that's not what we do as schools. We have people come to our building. We pour into them, and then we send them away. But that's not flexible, right? So that's the first one. All right, what's the second one you want to go to?
I say we go with dinosaurs.
Got it. Just a couple notice. I'm notice a couple of the comments over here. Um, yes, schools are not flexible. Progress is being made, no question about it. The issue that I have is when I work with parents, I say to them, okay, progress is being made. And in 10 years, maybe 15, definitely 20, there's going to be some significant changes to the system. You want to just wait on that? Of course, the answer is no, right? So for parents, they have to move now. They got to move quickly. They can't wait for a slow system to change. All right. Second one is what? What did you want to do?
Dinosaurs. Dinosaurs, definitely dinosaurs.
Dinosaurs. Okay. What happened to the dinosaurs? I'm going to test your history, your Texas history, because that's a mandatory
Texas.
That's a mandatory class in Texas
mandatory
public
class.
schools.
I took it. Do I remember it?
Super important class.
I don't remember it. I don't remember dinosaurs in Texas history, though. That seems like a new topic.
You didn't study very well, obviously.
I did not. They died. I mean, that's the moral of that's the basic.
How did they die?
Meteor.
Or why? Meteor,
Why?
maybe. Yeah, I think it was meteor.
Ice age.
So
dinosaurs, meteor. It's fine.
Right,
they're not here.
I'm gonna blend some ideas here. I'm gonna blend. What was that movie about the dinosaurs? Jurassic Park and science, right? So, asteroid hits. You got essentially a nuclear winter where there's debris in the atmosphere and cools the Earth. Freezes, dinosaurs go out of business. They go out of business. So for dinosaurs, the issue there was timing, right? That asteroid could have hit 100 million years ahead or behind, and they would have been fine. It hit at that moment, and at that moment, their plan was completely disrupted. That is exactly what happened over the last year with COVID. Everybody was, hey, we'll continue to just gently move and adjust. We're fine. We're comfortable. COVID hits, and immediately everybody immediately is like, okay, right? Think about this. For the first time in school kind of history, we've got 50 million experiments happening in education right now. Every home is a small experiment. What's working, what's not. This is national. This is international too, by the way. I was talking to a guy from Germany who was talking about the very dynamics that we're talking about in the U.S. So this is the timing issue that COVID hit while you and I are alive, and now we have to adjust. And some kids adjusted rapidly, and some didn't. And part of the problem with why they didn't adjust rapidly is because they weren't ready. They weren't built to be flexible. The system, again, is inflexible. And so kids and schools were stuck, right? So first one is the asteroid strike with dinosaurs and the timing of that. And then the other is the Buggywhip. Both those are about timing and flexibility. And we're ready to go to Blockbuster?
Blockbuster.
Okay, good. I'm just checking to see the feed here if there's anything of interest here. But the Blockbuster video. Okay, 2000. When did you graduate from high school?
When did I finish high school or when did I graduate from high school? Because those are two very different questions.
Tell me. My goodness, that seemed like a really simple question.
Wasn't it simple? It seemed simple.
Well, tell me around the time that you were done with the traditional K-12 environment, roughly.
2006-ish.
Okay, so you're just a little pup. All right.
You're a pup.
You are a pup. So in 2000, Netflix, which was at the time valued at $50 million, but had lost $57 million that year, went to Blockbuster Video, which I think was valued at $8 billion at the time.
Jeez.
8,000 stores around the world. And Netflix went to Blockbuster and said, we'd like you to buy us. And you know what Netflix or what Blockbuster said?
No, thank you.
They didn't say no, thank you. They laughed. I mean, it was they did say no, thank you, but it was kind of like, no chance, right? And 10 years later, Blockbuster is out of business. Netflix is valued at, I don't know how many gazillions of dollars. Gazillion is a real world. Is
it though? Is it?
I just said it.
Okay.
So,
all right. I mean, you are good at the words. Your vocabulary is on point today.
Yes.
So.
Oh, 2014, I think maybe that's when Blockbuster went under finally. But the point is that that happened fairly quickly, right? And that moment where Reed Hastings was realizing that Netflix is about convenience. That's
Mm-hmm.
that's all they're offering. That's what Amazon offers. It's convenience. Schools,
Because they bring it to my door.
they bring it to your doggone doorstep, right? And we're so
The next
lazy.
day.
We're so lazy as humans. I can't get out of my car and go to a store. I need
That
it.
is ridiculous.
It's true.
I mean, it's not wrong, but it's still ridiculous.
It is. It is ridiculous. But we're humans, and we are. Netflix is creating a special documentary about the last Blockbuster store in Oregon. That is fantastic. Isn't that kind of rubbing salt in the wound, though?
I feel like it is. I mean, at least they waited a couple of years before they decided to go for that. You know, they gave them some time to grieve.
Right. Okay, so back to this. It's all about convenience. And so I wrote an article on our blog post, theeducationgame.com. Go check it out.
Shameless plug.
And for now, it's free. So you better get there quickly. So right. The blog post was called The Unbundling of American Education. And really, this is really now an international dynamic. The unbundling means I can get all sorts of loving these comments over here. I've never done this before. This is really... You
are the Shakespeare of our day and age, sir.
That is high praise. That is high praise. Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, back to task. I can now get high quality math instruction from a live individual in another country who is a PhD prepared mathematician who loves math, right? Who just like wakes up in the morning wanting to teach people math. I could learn from that guy or gal, and I could learn from that guy or gal at like $5 an hour, right? Mm-hmm. Or, as I was talking to someone about this the other day, I can log into any number of online systems. We've talked about a couple of them. What's it called? OutSchool, and then
Varsity Tutors, Galileo.
Yep, Galileo. There's Expanse Online. All these programs. There's a great one called Nobel Explorers. So parents, listen to this.
I haven't heard of that one.
Check this out. Yeah, a guy named Andrew Sachs. Really cool guy. No experience in education at all. But what he realized, this is a couple of years ago, that with the international connectivity that we have, you could bring kids into a classroom or a virtual classroom and give them a project and have them just run. And so what he has these, 8 years and up kids that meet up internationally online, and they work on projects. They work on tech projects. They work on, web-based stuff. I don't understand the web stuff very much.
Web-based stuff. You do know what DM means now. And you used a GIF.
DM means Don Meredith, I think. DM. Oh, wait.
I can't take you anywhere.
DM. I really don't remember now.
For real.
Something
direct message.
Direct message. Yes.
But you did use a GIF.
I did, because someone I know helped me learn how to do that.
Isn't that exciting?
It's very exciting.
Like that.
It's very exciting.
What were we talking about?
William Kelly says, "Who does not love math?" What's
me?
wrong with
I
people?
don't love math. I do not love math.
Well,
that's me.
And I know why. Because
I learned math in a traditional education setting, and it was stupid.
Yes, it can be very stupid. So anyway, so again, just to review, we've got the Dinosaurs, we've got Blockbuster Video, and we've got Buggywhips. That is the way that school is going to end. All three of those dynamics is how school is changing and ending. And then there's actually one final thing that I'll say briefly. In all those examples, there was not just the asteroid and the dinosaur that was in the equation. It wasn't just Netflix and Blockbuster that was in the equation, or Buggywhips and Henry Ford. It was actually there were individuals, customers that were waiting on the disruption and watching what was going to happen. And once the disruption happened, then they had a chance to actually exert their choices. And so right now, what I'm trying to do is support parents and helping them not do school choice, because school choice is between that school and that school. And both of those schools have fundamentally the same model, right?
Right.
What I'm talking about is educational choice or learning choices.
Learning choice.
Choices. Because every choice I can make, I can take a math course here, I can start or join a makerspace over here, I can do an art program at the local museum, I can do my exercise at a park or with a club team. I can mix and match.
Yeah, it's modular. You're building a modular education or modular learning system.
Well said. That's a better term. Yep. But that's where learning is going. And not to mention, y'all, for the folks listening, the three people who are listening, the idea.
Why is so negative? Why?
There's a no. That's just I'm trying to provide personalized service to the three people.
Of course. Oh, you're individualizing your conversation. Perfect.
Yes.
Continue.
Yes. I don't even know what I was talking about. But I'm going to drink my pretend coffee here.
Is there actually coffee in there?
Could be. Yeah.
I heard you swallow. I know there's coffee in there.
Yeah.
We've gone off track at some point now that we're talking about you swallowing.
Yes.
We've now lost where we were going.
I think we're way off track. So this is what I do now. So I talk to parents and I try to help them understand all of their educational choices and then support them in that process. Because frankly, a lot of times parents get stuck in the old model too.
I love that you brought up the difference between school choice, which is kind of being seen as the savior, right?
Oh, yeah.
This model of school choice is coming, so everything's going to be fixed because we have school choice. And I like that you brought up that there's a difference between school choice and learning choices.
That's right. That's right.
And that's two very different things, because you can have a choice of schools. However, all the schools, charter, private, public, etc., have the same model of education. So school choice will not solve all the problems.
Well, and I guess let's also be clear, we're 20 years into school choice, y'all. And can we say that like things are working? I don't think so.
I feel like no.
So there's 4. I don't get
You said there were 3. David said I'm here, so there's 4.
Oh.
You said there were 3 people listening, so
David Young.
The uptake.
I know David Young. David Young's a good guy. He's an example actually of somebody who what's the name of his program? Oh, David, sorry. Send a quick note. But he helps kids learn how to build underwater robots. Right?
Wow.
Really cool.
That's very
right?
cool.
Very cool. And again, that's something that can happen completely separate from a traditional school. Now, he does operate in traditional schools, and if those schools are kind of forward thinking, they would try to acquire his work. But for parents who are like, hey, I've got a daughter who's interested in marine biology, which I actually do have a daughter that's interested in marine biology. This is something of interest to her. Dr. Simpson, number 5. Great. Now I'm going to start getting, my mom and my dad and Aunt Marie joining on the line. Yeah. Welcome.
Well, so I found you through LinkedIn, obviously, because that's where all my friends live, is LinkedIn now. I no longer have any 3D friends. I only, live here.
Well, I'm in 3 dimensions here.
Well, that's not helpful. Oh, look, David said Robo Nation.
That's it. Robo Nation. Thank you, David. Robo Nation is the place you can go online, robonation.org, I believe, and you can order the plans, or you can actually order the parts. But again, if you got a child who likes to build stuff, super cool opportunity to build that. And I interviewed David for my podcast, and that'll be coming out hopefully in the next year or 2, because I'm so horribly behind in my podcasts. So thank you, David. Hey.
Now you got everybody showing up.
All right.
We can't see you unless you comment. So sometimes people are like, hey, I was at your live. did you see me? I'm like, no, if you don't comment, I can't see that you're here. So I love the comments. So, okay. So I found you on LinkedIn.
Yes.
I think you commented on somebody else's post about something about education, learning, something, parenting, talk to people, right? And I was in the middle of trying to figure out what to do with my girls, because even though Matt is the person who talks me off the ledge. So I was talking to a friend and I was like, I have a call tomorrow with an education consultant, essentially. And she was like, aren't you an education consultant? I was like, yes.
Super consultant.
I feel like I need the next level up there, right? Because sometimes when it's your own kids, you're like, I can't do it. Mm-hmm. So the conversation that I have with you, I think would be interesting to share. So a lot of times my oldest has done private, public, charter, and homeschool now. So she has done all of the models. And when we first started homeschooling, I'm going to tell you something, and don't judge me. Okay.
I'm going to reserve judgment until I hear what you say, and then I'll decide.
Okay, that's fine. So even with all of the knowledge that I have about child development and my hatred for standardized, essentially, shenanigans, we went and bought textbooks for her to start her lesson planning, because what else was I supposed to do, right? Because the thought process is, if you want this child to re-enter traditional education, you have to have XYZ, right? And so there's all that fear wrapped up in that, and that's what you're hearing, and that's what you're being told. And even though I knew textbooks were not what I wanted, they were not what she wanted, nobody wanted any of that. That's not how we learn. That was what I did. And it was a fear-based response.
That's right.
And then my youngest was at a private school that was built for learning different kiddos. She's dyslexic and ADHD. And she was doing all the right things. The school was doing all the right things, but we weren't making progress. So we pulled her out and we put her, now she's doing this school model with us, which there was also fear in that, which our most recent conversation was, she's dyslexic. So if she's not reading on this level by third grade, then she will forever never be able to do, and she's not, and she doesn't have an ALT, and oh my gosh, and what are we going to do?
Okay.
And it was just like,
okay. Just take a breath. Back away from the ledge.
Away.
Put the knife down.
Put it down. And so I think that's an integral role that you play is a lot of times parents can feel what they know is right. Yeah. They know that this is working, this is not working. Even the knowledge that I had in that working in education and being like pro burn everything down and start over in education model, right? I was still dealing with fear, and I was responding in my girls' education in a fear-based response to what I knew they didn't need or wasn't serving them well.
Right.
And that was like, okay, Matt, I know we're supposed to do all of these things, but I'm doing none of these things because I'm terrified of these things. So tell the people what you tell me.
Yeah, well, first I had you step away from the ledge. Yes, put the knife down, hands behind your back. Yeah. So what I said was, every parent goes through this same struggle. As Maggie mentioned, we're all educational consultants. She's entirely right, because we're all trying to figure this out, right? And I'm no expert. I am an expert on my kids, but I'm certainly not an expert on anybody else's kids. But I do know that we felt a couple times where everybody was like in an uproar. Oh, have you gotten your child on this wait list, or have you applied to this program, or right? And my wife and I are looking at each other. We haven't done any of this stuff, and it's hard to not fall into that trap. But this is the same trap that says, if you're not getting your child to the best elementary school and getting them in the gifted and talented program, which I just wrote a blog post about that. I hate
GT programs.
That's another conversation.
Gosh, yes. That's a whole other rabbit trail.
It is. So if you're not doing all these things, then you're somehow injuring your child. What I am here to offer, and I'll tell you, my kids went to, they've gone to traditional public, private, hybrid private, homeschool, and independent learning, where they set the tempo and we create a learning plan around them. I can promise you two things about this. All these other models, these non-traditional models, they can have a less but better approach to learning. So my children learn far more in a fraction of the time. They go
Oh, yeah.
far faster on the areas that they have interest in. They're reading far more in just a quarter or a third of the time of a kid in a normal educational environment.
You mean they're following their interests?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Yes, that's what I'm saying.
Oh,
Yes.
okay.
They're following their interests, but it's more than that, right?
Yep.
We're creating a learning model around them, and they then are able to pursue their interests and build more agency at the same time, right? Because do I have time can I show a graphic?
Show a graphic.
Oh, I'm about to blow your mind. Are you ready?
Oh my gosh.
Here we go.
I'm ready.
For the 3, oh wait, I think we're up to 6 people listening now. I'm gonna show you how old school I am. I have a whiteboard right here.
You have a whiteboard.
Well, it's actually a flip board. That's even worse.
Oh my gosh, you have paper.
Out.
That's what I don't even understand. That's paper?
Paper and markers. I do all my thinking visually, and so here is something that every parent. Okay, y'all, this is the time that if you're in your car, pull over to the side of the road, because this is going to blow your mind. Here we go. So this is the graph that I call the leadership of learning graph. So when you're this line down here is the child. Okay. This line here is the parent. And this shows how much leadership either party is playing in the life of a child. Some of y'all may have heard this, they've heard my spiel before. So when the child is born, they have zero leadership in their learning, right? Mm-hmm. I've never seen an infant say, Mom, can you read me that story? I've never seen that happen. Maybe it would happen with your kids, Chelsea, because you're a better parent than I am.
Totally.
Yes.
Absolutely. I was just thinking that. I wasn't going to say it, but it's fine. You continue.
Right. So the parent has 100% ownership and leadership of the child's learning. Over time, though, this is the graphic that you want, where the child is building more and more agency, more ownership of their own learning, to the point where at some point, and there's a question about, like, when does this transition happen? It changes for each kid, but it switches. And after this point, the parent can actually start to step back and let the child lead and let the child explore the areas, and the parent becomes the coach, right? This side is kind of more of a command and control, classic command and control environment. That's where the pre-K and primary education tends to happen. Foundational stuff, hugely important. But if we don't, as parents, if we're not really intentional about making this switch, then we grow kids who don't know how to define what they want to learn. They don't know how to plan what they're going to learn. Yeah, maybe they can execute it if somebody else tells them to do it, but they also don't know how to evaluate what they want to learn.
Right. Oh,
and
yeah.
Every high-functioning adult does those 4 things every single day, hundreds of times a day. Define a goal, set a plan, execute, and evaluate. Now, a traditional school structure, the teachers are entirely responsible. The school, the system is entirely responsible for setting the plan for the child's learning. So the child kind of stays down here until, guess what? They graduate, hopefully. And now, after that point, guess what? They're expected to be entirely responsible for all their learning. And they have to go from 0 to 100 in a few weeks. That doesn't make any sense. So it does
not make any sense.
This is the model that only happens to a small subsection of traditionally instructed kids, or most kids that are learning outside of the traditional model, because they're given the flexibility and the freedom to operate like that. That, to me, is what I'm about. And I've got 3 kids who are they're just absolutely crushing it. I mean, it's just crazy. So you may have seen the blog post a couple weeks ago about my youngest, who's 15. Uh-oh, it's about to fall down. Who's 15. So every day she's got her whole list of things that she's doing, and she's killing it. She's writing a book, and
oh my gosh, that's amazing.
Yeah, she's taking an online course here. And she sets it all up, and it costs about $250 a month. And what role do I play in it? A couple of times a week. Hey, how's it going?
Yeah.
Tell me about the progress here. You got getting stuck in any place? She's taking an online social entrepreneurship course.
Yep.
I mean, again, those are the things that are possible. And I'm just like crazy passionate about trying to help parents understand that these options are out here.
Well, and what's interesting is my girls have gone through that very recently, this transition, right? Because even when we started homeschooling my oldest, we started homeschooling my oldest at the start of the school year, and my youngest was in private because she needed special services. And it was very structured. Like, we need you to do this, turn it in, I'll look at it, we figure it out, right? Because that was the fear driving it. And as time went on, her and I evaluated, and we just dropped more and more and changed it and whatever. And now she's in Galileo. And Galileo functions very much like that, because she just builds out her modular degree all in one place. That she pulls things, and she has a facilitator. They don't call them teachers, they're facilitators. And they check in once a day, and they get to do like a group conversation. What are your goals? Show me your schedule. What are you working on today? And then they present at the end of each month their like main project that they've worked on. And I love that, because it's similar to what you were saying about the Nobel Explorers, where it's worldwide, it's international, and exactly. They get to do that. And they have some accountability with someone other than me, which I really like that. And she likes that. Anyway, she's taking a junior entrepreneurship course. She's taking a class in VR. She gets to kind of pick up things that she likes and drop things that she doesn't.
Yeah.
And she runs it on her own. She builds up her schedule. She shares it with me on her Google Calendar. If she has questions, she asks me, and that's the same thing. And she's 11. So I think it's really important for parents to know that this doesn't have to be when your kid is 15,
right?
Or when your kid is 13, or when your kid is whatever, because she is picking it up. And it was a struggle at the beginning, but it can be at any age,
right.
Really.
It's a process, and it has to be facilitated. And if bye, Maggie. If the school, schools are not built for this.
Right.
Schools are built to teach, to give information to the child without asking the child what they're interested in. Right.
They don't have a seat at the table. And I think now we're doing the same thing with my youngest. I was telling you before the show started, she's 9, and because she has ADHD, executive function was a big concern. So I was going into it I don't know that she'll be able to manage her schedule. I don't know that she'll be able to have that much autonomy. I don't know that she'll be able to. And I was placing my fears on that. And then she started seeing her sister kind of do those things, and she's like, ooh, I want to do that. So she builds out her lesson plan or her schedule for the day, and she pulls things from Varsity Tutors, Outschool. She's not in Galileo and a couple other places. And she's like, I want to do yoga and whatever else, and hip hop and whatever. And she builds it out, and then she carries her schedule with her through the day. And she knows, I have 6 classes today, and I'm going to finish these things. And she's 9. And she'll set a timer when she knows she has time to go. I mean, and she's loving it.
Yes.
And she was the kid who, when all of this started, when she had to read, would curl up in a ball on the ground and cry.
Wow.
And they were coming back and saying, she has to read on this level, and she has to read on this level. And there was so much pressure and anxiety. And I didn't know what to do. I mean, I did know what to do, but I was still acting out of fear until I was like, Matt, the ledge, it's right there. I'm on it. I'm on the ledge. Help me.
Put it down.
But now they're thriving.
Yeah.
And it's amazing. I mean, I'm still blown away by it. To see my own kids do it.
And it is. And so this idea about the fear, there was another parent I was working with whose child was doing very well in this virtual environment, like not doing well before, but doing well now. And the parents, said, hey, we think we're going to stick in this model. And I tell you what, the school was like, you're going to injure your child. That's
Absolutely.
A lot of pressure, right? A lot of fear mongering kind of. And so I've been talking to this parent about, look, the child's happy. You guys are able to make it work. He's learning. He's curious. He's becoming more curious. Why would you stop that? So
it's scary. It's fear.
The fear is real, right? So the fear is that we make a choice, and 20 years from now, our child is on the street, right?
Yep.
That's
for real. Like, that's what's happening in my brain right now. That's the ledge.
I know, and that's why I don't have any hair, because every time that felt that, I was like this, and that's what we're left with. Hopefully, it won't happen to you. But that fear,
I wouldn't look as good. I feel like me bald would be a different experience than
I don't know.
Bald.
Bald is the new hair, I think.
Sure. Yeah, we'll go with that. Please continue.
Yeah, it wasn't quite as smooth as I'd liked. So the fear, what happens when you're afraid is that our executive functioning skills decline. Our
Right.
ability to be
Amygdala,
creative.
straight to the
Yes,
amygdala.
exactly. Our ability to be creative declines. Our ability to kind of anticipate and actually be rational declines. And so a lot of, I think I mentioned this before, like a lot of the work I do with parents, it's quasi counseling. It's like, hey, you know what?
For real. It's like therapy.
Hey, it's going to be okay. Right. Here's a great story. So a guy I interviewed today, 17-year-old young man. His name is Philip. He's going to be on the podcast again in a year or two when I finally get it processed. So he fell in love with magic at age 13 and like went deep. I mean, like to the exclusion of everything else. He's like, I want to do magic. I want to do magic. I want to do magic. Mom is freaking out. Like, what's going on with this kid? I want to do magic. I want to do magic. And at some point, they just let him kind of go, and he started to build it. He started to do performances. He, was presented to groups of 200. And the cool thing is, he has now taken his interest in magic and he's merging it with his interest in academics, and he's wanting to study behavioral economics around the area of deception, because a magician just deceives, right? That's all they do. And he's like, how does that work? What's going on in the brain when that happens? How am I able to trick people so consistently? So he's like, I'm like, dude, you need to talk. Yes, you need to talk to some professors, because somebody's going to be like, that's the guy I want in my lab today, right?
Seriously.
But that no one could have expected that would have happened. And a lot of parents would have said, hey, put that magic trick down. You're not going to become a magician. That is no, right? But we don't know how this is all going to play out. All we know is if we can build in our kids their ability to learn how to learn, their ability to know how to solve their own problems, we as parents can step back and allow our children to fly. And they're going to, they'll skin their knee and they'll figure it out. So.
Yeah, I love that. And I think I'm seeing it play out right now with my girls. I'm actually thinking of doing an interview with them on our live show and like bringing Phelan, my oldest, on and saying like, hey, tell me about your day. And she's probably going to say ridiculous stuff. She'll be like, I play Roblox all day. I just feel it.
That's fine. You absolutely should, because not for the 3 or 4 people who are listening, but for your own daughter. 6 people who are listening, for your own daughter, because your daughter, in my estimation, kids need to be learning how to use these systems, right? They need to learn how to use LinkedIn. Both of my daughters, my son he doesn't want to hear from his dad, but by the way, he's the one that went from a non-traditional model back to a traditional model as a freshman
and survived.
Not only he survived, I mean, he's a valedictorian. He crushed it. I didn't ask him a single thing for the last 4 years. Like, what is he studying? What is he doing? He just he's on it. It's like, Dad, I got it. I'm on it. Anyway, my girls have LinkedIn accounts, and they're beginning to network, and they're beginning to learn how to interview. They're beginning to learn how to edit. They're beginning to learn how to use the technologies that are going to become standard from this point on.
Do they know what DM means?
I don't know. I will explain it to them if they don't. Now that you've explained it to me.
At least they have you to share that information with them.
I'm so
my 9-year-old does the same thing. I mean, she goes live on her Twitch account and she does those things and she builds her websites and, she's learning all of that. And I think that's really super valuable. And so I just love seeing it. She teaches me stuff. When she found out I had a Twitch account, she was like, do not follow me, Mom. Okay. You do your Twitch over there and I'll do my Twitch over here. Okay. And if I'm live, I'll let you know if I want you to come or not.
She'd probably be okay with me following her though, because I'm cool. Yeah, I am.
Totally.
I told myself that.
This is my I agree with you face.
Because it looks just like the I don't believe a word you're saying face. That's interesting.
I mean, it's funny, but it's, I totally believe you. So I think all of this wrapped up into one is interest-led learning and student-centric learning is key. Oh, look, William is asking, why did your son go back to traditional?
Great question, William. Okay, so his hybrid school was small at the time. And now it's like, I think it's 800 kids, but he was like from the very early class, and he had, I think, 8 kids in his class. And he wanted the traditional high school experience. And so back to this graphic, at some point I had to say, and it was hard, honestly, I had to say, Ben, you're learning a lot more in this model. I believe this model is actually going to be better for you, but you got to make the call. And he wanted to go back, or he wanted to go, not back, but he wanted to go to public school and go through that whole and wanted to go through that whole deal. And so he did. And what would have happened if I had told him no? No, you can't go.
Not great things.
And what it would have done is I would have been still in the command and control sector when my son was far. I mean, we got to be clear, like a 14-year-old young man, he's not a boy, he's a man, right? But it was hard for me to make that mental transition. That's some of what I also talk to parents about, is preparing to make that transition where you now are looking at that kid not as a child anymore, but a young man with agency, who has to make decisions for themselves and has to decide sometimes to screw up and then figure it out.
What could go wrong? What's growth mindset? And I talk about that as well in the ego of the educator. Essentially, it's kind of the same thing, is how we set the ego of the educator, our ego, aside, so that we can really do true co-constructivism with the child, with the learner. And I think that's similar in this mindset shift with parents, is we really have to set aside our I know best. I'm going to help you make better decisions. Because I was actually looking at a post the other day that said the future of education is that we don't know the future of education. And I think that's the huge thing, is we don't know what it looks like. So if we were to tell, like for your son, if we were to say, no, this is the better thing, then that's us assuming the future of education. And so I love that concept that you did. And so I think my oldest will probably want to go back to a traditional model. Eventually, she talks about it a lot. She misses just the ridiculousness of hanging out with her friends, walking in the hallway. I think it's ridiculous. I think it's a waste, but whatever.
Well, it is tricky, right? So there's such a powerful paradigm in our culture and really internationally about the way you have a happy life is to follow the conveyor belt. Don't step off of the conveyor belt until after you finish college. And the way to get to college is to stay on the high school conveyor belt. It is, right? Think about it. Like, we know the things that have to happen in order to go to a great college, and they are: I get good grades, I volunteer at the Children's Hospital, and I get a good SAT score, right? But that model is blown up. Again, having been on a university board and having been associated with other universities and admissions officers, this kid, Philip, I was telling you about, now he's been going to community college since 10th grade exclusively. He's got 70 credits, college credits, and he's 17 years old. He's got this really interesting magic deal, and he's interested in behavioral economics. Universities are going to clamor for that dude, right? The traditional model of stay in my lane, do the grades, do the homework, that thing, don't ask for questions, keep my head down.
Don't ask questions.
That's not what businesses want. Businesses want people who can come in and solve problems, not just wait for me to tell you what to solve, right? So this is the shifting that's happening. And unfortunately, a lot of families don't understand that this is actually happening right now.
Oh, yeah. And I think that's what's so valuable about what you are doing, is you're, counseling parents, because it's more than just making the decision. I want my child to, have learning agency. It's a shift for the family. It's a shift for the parents. I mean, it's a huge shift. And having someone to help you say, put the knife down and walk away from the ledge is super important, regardless of how much you know or don't know about education and child's learning, et cetera. And so that's why I love what you do, because I think it's so valuable and important, and especially right now. And so where do we find you? I've heard you had a podcast.
I do have a podcast. You can find all that on our website, theeducationgame.com. But I'd recommend that you connect with me on LinkedIn. And it's Matthew C. Barnes, and LinkedIn / Matthew C. Barnes. And those two, you'll hear about all the things. We got a lot of things that are upcoming. Tons of podcasts that are in the works, as well as a series. we'll get it done before that. but a series of workshops that we're scheduling for May with several folks around the country who see education differently. Tech folk. Thank you for putting that there. Oh yeah, look at that. Thank you.
Asking you shall receive.
That's right. So yes, webinar workshops that'll be happening on a monthly basis on topics that are like of critical importance to families, and so yeah, that's what we're doing. This is a fun mission work, but it started because I saw how many parents had no earthly idea about the transitions that are happening around them, and their kids are running into their kids are going to have problems if they're not ready for this new educational environment or this new world that they're going to be stepping into in a very short period of time.
Joe says, thanks for sharing your children's strategies, student-centered learning, and learning to step back as a parent. How about students living in poverty conditions where parents are unable or don't support students in the directions you have chosen?
Excellent. Thank you for the call, Joe. I meant to bring that up earlier. So a couple things. First off, that's the majority of my work, actually. That's the population that I'm actually most concerned about. Secondly, those families, the current model sucks for them. The current model is terrible. That's the 1 in 10 Black boys who aren't reading on grade level by 3 years old. I'm sorry, by 3rd grade. That's the population that is being disserved by this old model. The new model, I have worked with a bunch of families who you don't have to have a lot of money. In fact, you don't have to have any money to make some of the stuff happen. You have to have a social network if you do not have resources, though. So that's where, for me, I really work through the church where families can talk to their church members and say, listen, I want to try something different, but I got to work and I'm a single mom. I need to create a structure maybe with other parents where we work together. So we want to try to get the best shot for our kids, and we're going to need somebody to be here this hour. Somebody to be here at this hour. It creates, it's a harder model, no question about it, but I've seen it work, and it requires most importantly, requires the parent to recognize that if they do nothing differently, they're going to see the outcomes that we can expect with great predictability for low-income families. So that means it starts with the parent. We cannot wait for the system to fix itself. We've been waiting for that for 40 years. It's not going to happen. So that's my, and again, please connect with me, because that's the population I'm most urgent about. That's the population that brought me into this, by the way. But yes, if we do nothing, because those families are going to have it harder, they already have it harder. Their kids are already suffering in the current model. Hope that helps, Joe.
Yeah, that was a great question, because it is a very different, a different set of requirements and things that standards you have to meet to be there with your child. Like for me, I work from home, so my girls are here and doing that, but it's a very different experience for everyone. But I mean, my youngest, we don't pay for her. She uses the free classes on Varsity Tutor, and she takes someone out school and those types of things. So there are free resources that are available to students who are looking to learn and those types of things.
Yes, and the library is the resource number one. Again, Joe, please reach out to me if you have specific questions about this. We can talk at length. I also, Joe, and everyone, I also give one-on-one free counseling sessions. So you can go to my website, click contact, again, theeducationgame.com, click contact, and you can schedule a one-on-one conversation with me where we just shoot it. And we talk about your plan. We talk about what your hopes are for your kids. And
we talk about the ledge and
how to back away from the ledge. That's right.
Well, that's awesome. I mean, we could sit here and have this conversation for the next 6 hours, but I love this conversation. And I think anybody who is listening or watching, definitely connect with Matt, because I think we're forging the future of education without knowing what the future education is. So that's fun. It's always fun. It's never boring. Always a really fun thing. So I want to say thank you to Restream for sponsoring our post. That's what I get to use to be able to stream to all the different channels. So Twitch and LinkedIn and Facebook and all of that. So that's super cool. And Matt has also learned what DM means and uses GIFs. So that's really important.
Thank you.
And I think we are going to come back and interview my girls at some point in the near future so they can talk about their education.
And interview my girls. Happy to do it. You just let me know.
Yeah, that's going to be so much fun. Okay. All right. Well, thank you guys so much for joining. And be sure to Thank you for all the comments. That was really fun. So
Yep.
be sure to check out next week. What Could Go Wrong Live happens again.